Do you know what these items are in everyday English? Well, today you're in luck. I'm going to be helping you learn 15 common everyday household items in English, plus each item has an expression or idiom that goes along with it that you might or might not know. So maybe you know what this is, but do you know the idiom that goes with this? Well, you are about to learn today. Hi, I'm Vanessa from SpeakEnglishWithVanessa.com. And like always, I have created a wonderful PDF worksheet for you here today where you can download all of today's useful everyday items plus the idioms that go along with these items so that you can use them easily in daily conversation. You can click on the link below this video to download that free PDF worksheet today. It is my gift to you. Let's get started with item number 1 and idiom number 1. Do you know what this item is? This is a hammer. And what do you do with a hammer? You hammer in a nail. So I want to help you with a great expression that we use to talk about hammers. The other day, someone asked me, Vanessa, what's the point in learning a foreign language? Well, as you can imagine, this is something I feel very passionately about. So I started talking for like 10 minutes about the benefits of learning a foreign language. You might say, I hammered, boom, 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 my point home. And this is the expression, to hammer your point home. And here point just means your ideas, your perspective. I really wanted that other person to see my perspective because I was so passionate about it. I told them all the benefits, all the great things that can happen, all of the excitement about learning a foreign language. So I wanted to hammer my point home. I didn't want to just say something simple. Instead, I wanted to make sure they understood. I wanted to hammer my point home. Do you know what this item is? It's quite useful. It's a broom. My broom has some problems. It's really bent. I guess we were sweeping ferociously at some point. But there are two wonderful expressions that I'd like to teach you related to sweeping. Now notice that the verb is not to broom. You don't broom the floor, you sweep the floor with a broom. But what happens if you sweep something under the rug? Well, what happens to that item that you sweep under the rug? Is it visible for everyone to see? Nope, it is hidden. So if there's something in your life that you don't want to think about, usually this is something kind of serious. So let's imagine that your aunt and uncle have announced that they are getting a divorce. And when you see your aunt the next time, you want to talk to her. You want to see if she's okay. You want to talk about this, but she's silent. Oh, well, you might say, my aunt is deciding to sweep her divorce under the rug. That means she wants it to stay hidden and unspoken. Maybe she's dealing with a hard time, probably is. Maybe she just doesn't want to discuss it yet, or maybe she feels really uncomfortable discussing it. So she is sweeping it under the rug to keep it hidden. Now that expression is quite negative. We're sweeping something serious under the rug. But what happens if you get swept off your feet? Well, when you're sweeping the floor, usually you don't fall down, right? But this expression, to be swept off my feet, has to do with love. So you might say, the first time that I saw him, I was swept off my feet. Maybe he didn't literally pick you up and carry you away, but this idea that I could hardly walk, I was just floating. He swept me off my feet when he brought me roses and chocolate and said so many nice things. This means you are in love. He swept me off my feet. Here is my sink, and oh, it's looking beautiful right now. My husband Dan just did the dishes, so it is nicely cleaned. But do you know what this is down here? This is the drain, and everything goes down the drain if it gets into that little hole. So here, water is going down the drain. Now, what goes down the drain? Usually it's something that you don't want to keep, hopefully. Hopefully not your rings or something important. Usually it's just waste. So here, water is going down the drain. But we can use this expression down the drain for other things that might be wasted. So you could say, buying expensive clothes for your children is just money down the drain because your kids are going to get them messy, they're going to rip them. It is not a good investment to buy expensive clothes for your children. Buying expensive clothes for your children is just money down the drain. It's wasted. Do you know what this is called? This is a window. And what happens if I decide to throw something out the window? First of all, you might ask, why, Vanessa, would you throw something out the window? That's a good question. Well, this is the wonderful expression, out the window, not necessarily with throw, but take a look at this sentence. Our plans for a beautiful picnic went out the window when a thunderstorm rolled in. Okay, so our plans are out the window. Does this mean that I have a piece of paper that I'm balling up and really just throwing out the window? No. This just means that our plans had to change in kind of an unfortunate way, some way that I didn't want to have happen. So our plans went out the window when the storm rolled in. We had to come up with plan B because no one wants to have a picnic in the pouring down rain. What do you call this item? I actually don't have this item, but there's a great expression I want to teach you with it. This is an iron. Notice the pronunciation. I-earn. Iron, iron. This is an iron, and with an iron, you help to get wrinkles out of your clothes. This is making something smoother and nicer. So let's imagine an idiom that we can use with iron. Let's imagine that you and your friends would like to go on vacation to Venice. What a wonderful idea. But you've never gone on vacation with those friends before, and it's quite a big trip for you. So you might say, we need to iron out the details before we book our trip. You want to make sure that all of the wrinkles are smoothed out. Where are you going to stay? What kind of trip would you like to have? Is this going to be a nightclub trip, or is this going to be a sit in a coffee shop and look at the views type of trip? You want to iron out the details before you actually book the trip. Do you know what these are in English? These are light bulbs. And what happens if you have a light bulb moment? Well, if you've ever watched any cartoons or anything animated, whenever someone gets a good idea, or maybe just an idea, they often have a light bulb appear above their heads. Aha, I have a great idea. And that is referring to this wonderful expression, which is to have a light bulb moment. So for you, in your English journey, perhaps you have been learning English for a long time in the classroom, studying some textbooks, maybe going to some local classes, and then one day you had a light bulb moment and you realized, this method is not working for me. I have been doing this for years and years. Why aren't I more fluent in English? So you decided to go online and find some wonderful classes, maybe with Vanessa. So here you had a moment of inspiration, a light bulb moment. And now you're here learning English. Thank you. Do you know what these are? This is a nut, the circular part, and this is a bolt. Now, we usually use these together. The nut fits onto the bolt and it screws onto the bolt. You can build pretty much anything if you have a nut and a bolt. So what does it mean to get down to the nuts and bolts of something? Well, when you look at a chair or a table, you don't really see the nuts and bolts. But are they important? Absolutely. And whoever built that chair or table needed to know exactly where the nuts and bolts went in order to build sturdy furniture. So here we're talking about the details. Sometimes these details aren't fun to plan out. Some people love planning the details of a project, but maybe you're someone who doesn't like to get down to the nuts and bolts of a project. So we might say she has a lot of ideas, but she doesn't like to get down to the nuts and bolts of what will make the project actually work. So it's fun to come up with ideas, but to actually do the project in detail isn't always so exciting. There's always going to be parts that will be difficult or less fun. So maybe you're someone who likes to get down to the nuts and bolts of a project, or maybe you're someone who likes to just have fun ideas. Do you know what this is? This machine here? This is a coffee maker. Well, there's a specific sound or verb that we sometimes use to talk about coffee, and it is percolate. Percolate. Well, if you have ever made coffee with a coffee maker, you hear that kind of bubbling, gurgling sound as the steam rises and the water is heating and making the coffee. Well, it hasn't finished making coffee yet, but it's in the process. There's also a lot of hot steam and hot water involved in percolating coffee. So, what does it mean when something else percolates? Take a look at this. You might say, when the boss sent the email to the entire company, he let it percolate before sending a follow-up email. Okay, so he's kind of letting it steam and boil throughout the company before he gives any kind of follow-up. We get the idea that this email might include some kind of surprising information, something maybe shocking, and he's letting it grow and steam before he follows up with that message. So he's letting his email percolate throughout the office before sending a follow-up and explaining some more. What is this? This is a cookie jar. Right now there are no cookies in this because actually we use this to put coffee beans in, and there are no more coffee beans. What a tragedy. But a great expression that you can use about cookie jar is this: to be caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Okay, well, this goes back to the idea that as a child, you were probably not allowed to eat an endless amount of cookies, right? So if your mom catches you with your hand in the cookie jar, you're probably going to be in trouble. And that's the idea of this expression. We could say the politician got caught with his hand in the cookie jar when it was found out that he was stealing money from a company. Okay, well, it's not a good idea. It's not a good thing when someone gets their hand caught in the cookie jar because they've been doing something wrong. Do you know what this is? Where am I sitting? Very comfortably. This is an armchair. There's a lot of different expressions for what to call this chair, but for the sake of this lesson, this is an armchair. Usually it has arms that you can rest your arms on and rest your belly, a very pregnant belly. But there's a wonderful expression that we can also use to talk about an armchair. What does it mean if someone says he is an armchair critic? Does it mean that he criticizes armchairs? Oh, that's not a good armchair. That's not a good armchair. No, instead, we can imagine someone who doesn't have professional knowledge, but they are still a critic nonetheless. So we can imagine your Uncle John sitting in his armchair saying, "Oh, no, that policy by the government wasn't good, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, I think that the neighborhood should do this." Well, does he really know? Is he really a professional in those areas? Nope, but he still has a lot of opinions. So someone who is an armchair critic is someone who doesn't have professional experience. They still have an opinion, and maybe their opinion isn't the best opinion, but that's okay. Everyone is an armchair critic about something, right? But you can also use this to talk about yourself if you want to let someone know that you're not a professional. So you might say, when it comes to investments, I'm an armchair critic. I've read a lot of articles and studied a little bit about it, but I have really not a great idea about how to really be a good investor. So here I'm talking about myself. I'm acknowledging that I don't have a whole lot of experience with this, so don't take my opinion too seriously. I'm an armchair critic when it comes to investments, and I still want to talk about it, but I'm not a professional. So this is a great way to use armchair critic. Do you know what this is called? This is a table. It's one of the first words that you probably learn in English, a table. But what happens when something is on the table? Are we talking about a physical item being on the table? Nope. Here, look at this sample sentence. I told my boss that if the offer for a promotion is still on the table, I would like to accept it. So here we can substitute the expression, I told my boss that if the offer for the promotion is still available, well, I would like to accept it. So here we're talking about something that is available, and usually it means something that's available to be discussed. There's a little nuance here that's talking about discussion. It's on the table. Now, the opposite of this is something that is off the table. That means we do not discuss this. It is something that is completely off the table. We are finished. It's done. For example, if your family is talking about planning a vacation and one family member says, hey, why don't we take a huge trip and go to Indonesia? Well, your family members might say, I'm sorry, but that idea is off the table. It will take too much money and we don't have enough time to be able to go that far away. So here we're talking about the availability for discussion is pushed away. That idea is off the table. But I'd like to give you another expression talking about table, little bonus. What does it mean when something is under the table? When something's under the table, is it visible? Nope. Instead, it's something that's hidden. So usually we use this expression under the table to talk about paying someone or getting paid, doing some kind of transaction, not necessarily legally. It doesn't have to be extremely illegal. For example, when I was in high school, I was a babysitter for a couple neighborhood families. So we could say, I got paid under the table. It doesn't mean that they really gave me money under the table. It just means that I wasn't signed up by the government to have a business as a babysitter. No, they just gave me some cash and said, thanks for watching our kids. And I didn't really report that money. Shh, government, don't listen to me. But this is pretty typical. If you walk someone's dog and they give you some money, okay, that might be under the table. They're just doing the transaction hidden. Usually it's socially acceptable, but this is the idea that it's not in the books. It's not your legal job. It's just something that's under the table. But of course, in some ways, this expression can be negative because if there is a legitimate business and they are doing something under the table, well, it really gives that business a bad reputation. So, for example, my father-in-law does a lot of international travel for his job. And he told me that in some countries, it's quite normal to bribe another company under the table in order to do a business deal with them. So this is not something that's written out officially. They're just saying, hey, we'll give you some extra money if you choose our company to do business with. Not very legal, at least in the US, this is considered unacceptable. But in other cultures and other countries, this is something that's quite normal to do a deal under the table. So depending on where you're from, this might be okay or not okay. What's this? What's this? This is a tea kettle and this is a pot. For the sake of this fun expression that I'm about to teach you, let's imagine that this pot is black. It's actually silver, but the wonderful expression is the pot calling the kettle black. Well, if both of these are the same color, it would be a little bit strange for the pot to say, "Hey, kettle, you're black." And the kettle would say, "Yeah, pot, but you're black too." So this idea here is when we're talking about someone pointing out a negative quality that really they also have. So this is also called hypocrisy. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine that I went to my friend Sarah's birthday party and I arrived 30 minutes late. She might say to me, "Vanessa, why are you always so late?" I might think in my head, "Hey, this is the pot calling the kettle black. Sarah's the one who's always late." So I'm wondering, why is she upset at me for being late? Because really she's the one who's chronically late. She's calling me the same color as her, the same problem that she really has. And kind of the nuance here is that she doesn't realize it. She doesn't realize the irony or the hypocrisy of her statement. Hey, that's the pot calling the kettle black. I was late one time. You're the one who's late all the time. Now, it wouldn't be very nice for me to say that to her at her birthday party, but that's the essence of the expression, the pot calling the kettle black. What are these items? These are tools. Here's a screwdriver and a wrench. And what is this? It's a knife. But the expression that we use includes both of these. They can be interchanged in a way. You might say, "He's not the sharpest tool in the shed," or "He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer." What does this mean? Is this nice? Absolutely not. This means someone's not very smart. That's basically the nuts and bolts of it, is that it means you're not the sharpest tool in the shed. There are a lot of people in the figurative shed who are smarter than you. You're not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Well, there are other people in the figurative drawer who are sharper than you. So my recommendation is, do not tell someone this. Do not say, "Oh, you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer." Not nice. But it is still a useful expression to know. You might hear this in a movie or TV show. And maybe, just maybe, when that person is not around, you might want to use that expression. So now you know. Well, congratulations on learning these 15 household items plus useful idioms that go along with them. I hope you had a light bulb moment during this lesson. Don't forget to download the free PDF worksheet that's available for this lesson. It includes all the household items, all of the definitions for the idioms, sample sentences, ideas, and you can answer Vanessa's challenge question using these wonderful daily life items. You can click on the link in the description to download the free PDF worksheet today. Well, thank you so much for learning English with me, and I'll see you again next Friday for a new lesson here on my YouTube channel. Bye! But wait, do you want more? I recommend watching this video next, where you will learn technology vocabulary, including what do you call someone who is really good at using technology? If you have any questions, you always ask them. What would you call that person? Well, watch that video to find out, and I'll see you there.